but I do want to welcome everyone to the Little Lunch Lectures today. My name is Stephanie Bourette. I'm the Director of Donor Relations for the Coastal Land Trust. This is a very special edition of the Little Lunch Lectures. And before I go too far, I'm going to try to get my camera to behave a little better. There we go. Today, we are celebrating and dedicating our Salters Creek Landing project. As you will hear soon, this project, completed last summer, holds special significance for many people and many entities for many different reasons. I would especially like to welcome those of you who have not joined us for a Little Lunch lecture before. Each week, we bring you a speaker on a topic related to the North Carolina coastal plain, and there is a lot to explore. I hope you will be inspired today to join us for another lecture in the near future. Recordings of Little Lunch lectures and a list of upcoming topics can be found on our website at coastallandtrust.org/lectures. Speaking of recording, we are recording the lecture today. If you don't want to appear in the video, just turn your video off and it will just be a little black screen and you won't be on there. Also, as Laura mentioned, we're going to keep everybody on mute during the presentation. And at the end, we hope to have some time to answer some questions. So if you use the chat function to submit a question to me, Stephanie Bourette, then we will try to get to some of those questions later in the program. On to the program. So first, I would like to introduce Ann Simpson, our board member and immediate past president of the Coastal Land Trust, to set the stage for today's dedication. And to you.
All right. Thank you, Stephanie. Greetings from Beaufort, North Carolina, where I am right now, and welcome to a celebration of North Carolina's Down East Natural Wonders. As Stephanie said, I'm Ann Simpson, past president of the Coastal Land Trust, but I'm speaking to you today from memories of my own childhood growing up in sea level, well, where Salters Creek is located. And for my tiny neighborhood next to Salters Creek, the woods and the wetlands around Salters Creek were our playground. It was a place where kids of any age could explore tiny little dark creeks, be startled by snakes and lizards, and also be amazed to realize that rare plants like real life orchids grew right here in our backyard. This is a pretty special place to be able to explore. In the 1960s and 70s, a trip to town for us meant driving a 30-mile ribbon of Highway 70 across vast expanses of coastal marshland, forest land, edging around Core Sound, and driving through 12 small fishing villages to get to Beaufort. For a child, it was, and for me as an adult, it still is a breathtaking journey, and infinitely varied on every single trip by changing weather, by the time of year, the time of day, and also by the annual migrations of so many different types of ducks, geese, and other waterfowl. We've all learned that kids who are awed by nature and have nature experiences when they're little can grow to be appreciative adults who can act on what they care about. And I couldn't be more pleased that you can still get to Salters Creek Landing from Highway 70, but that the road is now better known as the Outer Banks National Scenic Byway, one of only 150 designated byways in the country. So starting outside of Beaufort, the byway will lead travelers through those sweeping down east marshes right to Salters Creek, and then it turns north on Highway 12, right at Salters Creek, up to Cedar Island, Ocracoke, goes through Cape Hatteras National Seashore, and onto Whalebone Junction in Nags Head. So millions of tourists annually see and marvel at this coastal landscape. It's a great resource for coastal Carolina. Salters Creek is a big, ambitious, and important project for North Carolina, and thanks to the Coastal Land Trust and the contributions of so many others who cherish our state's rural identity and coastal natural resources, Salters Creek is here to stay and will quietly and beautifully continue to amaze us for generations. So thank you, Coastal Land Trust.
Thank you, Anne, for sharing your perspective of growing up down east and for sharing stories of this incredibly beautiful and meaningful place. Next, the founder and executive director of the Coastal Land Trust, Camilla Herlivek, will share with us the role that the Land Trust played in the conservation of Salters Creek Landing.
Thank you, Stephanie, and thank you, Anne. And it's great to see everyone, so many partners and friends. We'd hoped to have an in-person dedication event for the Coastal Land Trust's wonderful Salters Creek Landing project. I was especially looking forward to seeing our many friends in Carteret County with whom we gathered frequently over the years for good food, good company, and good conversations about conservation. Carteret County has some of the most beautiful landscapes on the East Coast, in my opinion, and it's been our pleasure to have joined with all of you to protect some of the best of these places. Among the 80,000 acres protected by the Coastal Land Trust during its 25-year or more history are storied places in Carteret like Seagate Woods, Guthrie Farm, Pettiford Creek, Gales Creek, Lukens Island, Turnagain Bay, and lands adjacent to the Croatan National Forest. So you probably wouldn't be surprised to learn that when the Coastal Land Trust decided to identify the top 40 projects in the entire coastal plain of North Carolina about 4 or 5 years ago, the most significant, the most extraordinary, and the most endangered natural lands, Carteret County had more than its share. And Salters Creek Landing is the penultimate of those top 40 priority conservation projects. To save Salters Creek and as many as possible of the other top 40 projects, the Coastal Land Trust launched its Your Land campaign, the single most ambitious initiative ever undertaken to save our coast's forests, shorelines, game lands, and preserves. Our campaign goal, $36 million, is audacious for sure, but today we're more than 85% of the way there. Is the effort to save the top 40 places worth it? Once you take a tour of Salters Creek Landing with Janice Allen, and once you hear from our partners who will tell you how this project contributes to their critically important missions, I think you'll know the answer, and it'll be the same as mine. And I hope you'll join me, our partners and funders, in supporting the Your Land campaign in the future to save the rest of the top 40 coastal conservation sites. So please take a moment to turn up the volume on your computer so you can hear the audio coming and enjoy a video tour of Salters Creek Landing led by the Coastal Land Trust's Janice Allen.
Oh, 1 second. Sorry about that. It is not wanting to play.
Hi, I'm Janice Allen, Director of Land Protection for the North Carolina Coastal Land Trust. I'm standing here at the North Carolina Wildlife Resource Commission's Salters Creek Wildlife Boat Ramp, right off Highway 70 in Carteret County. And I'm getting ready to head up Salters Creek to show you one of the Coastal Land Trust's premier conservation properties. Back in June 2017, the Coastal Land Trust embarked on a very ambitious land conservation effort to purchase and conserve over 5,400 acres of land known as the Salters Creek Landing Tract in down East Carteret County. In a matter of 2 years, we raised over $4.4 million to buy the property from the owners, the trustees of Sailor Snug Harbor in the City of New York, in June of 2019. We did not do this alone. We joined forces with many partners, the Marine Corps Air Station Cherry Point, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission, and others. And we're here today to dedicate this property and to thank our many partners. The Salters Creek Landing property is 17 miles of surveyed waterfront along Salters Creek, Long Bay, and West Thoroughfare Bay. The property hosts over 1,600 acres of pristine coastal marsh, 2,400 acres of Pocosin, Carolina bays, and bottomland hardwoods, 1,000 acres of longleaf pine flatwoods and xeric pine sandhills, and 400 acres in a mixture of maritime forests, shrub scrub, small ponds, and mixed pine hardwoods. The North Carolina Natural Heritage Program recognizes this property as being exceptionally ecologically significant, and it's referred to as the Atlantic Natural Heritage Site. The National Audubon Society also recognizes this property as part of the Cedar Island Marshes and Port and Bird area.
Coastal Land Trust transferred over 5,100 acres of the Salters Creek Landing property, the land east of Salters Creek and north of Highway 12, to the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission to be managed as public game lands.
Janice, thank you for taking us on a video tour of Salters Creek. What a beautiful place. I'm so glad our attendees got to see a bit of this vast preserve today without having to contend with the vast number of flying insects. Now, here's Janice once again, this time in person, with a little bit more to add about Salters Creek.
Thank you, Stephanie. Well, as Camilla noted, the Coastal Land Trust protects special places on our coast. And we try to be very strategic with our work. That is, we often attempt to connect and/or buffer existing conservation lands. This map highlights the general location of the Salters Creek Landing property in down east Carteret County, which is shown here in red. And as you can see, the property connects to a couple areas highlighted in green. The property connects to the 14,000 acre Cedar Island National Wildlife Refuge, and it buffers the military's 11,000 plus acre Piney Island installation situated across Long Bay. I can say on behalf of the Coastal Land Trust staff, the Salters Creek Landing property was one of the most challenging and rewarding projects we have worked on to date. As pointed out earlier, the property is at the top of the Coastal Land Trust Top 40 list of places that we've wanted to conserve. It is a special place. The property has many important conservation features, from scenic value to wetlands and water quality values, to migratory bird and wildlife habitat, to rare forest and natural heritage values. For me, every visit to the property leading up to our acquisition seemed to result in a new and exciting discovery, from observing several scenic small depression ponds like this one, to finding many beautiful and rare plants like delicate orchids and carnivorous plants like sundews. One day we stumbled upon a patch of maritime forest at the end of a foot trail near Salters Creek. You can just see me barely on the left side under a live oak that's draped in Spanish moss. And on the right is our good friend Carla Roth, who is a real estate contract officer with the Department of Navy, who we have enjoyed working with on many military conservation partnership projects. And on one cold January morning, we heard tundra swans calling off in the distance up on Long Bay. And on another site visit with Travis Cornegie and Richard Clark of the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission, we got a glimpse of a rare fox squirrel crossing the road. But the most exciting aspect of the Salters Creek Landing project is the number of wonderful partners that joined together to make this conservation project a reality. And again, because we were not able to gather in person for this dedication event, we invited our partners, those with a real estate interest in the property, to send in videos on why this project was important to them. And I think we're going to show a video of our partners.
You're not missing anything, anybody. I think we're having just a moment of technical difficulty, so hang in there with us just for a second. We'll get it going in just a hot minute. You might want to turn your volume up again.
I'm David Allen with North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission. I'm the Wildlife Diversity Supervisor for the Eastern Region. We found that Salters Creek is particularly important for wildlife. It's got some real unique habitats. It's got longleaf pine forest juxtaposed to salt marsh. It's got maritime forest. It's very important for red-cockaded woodpeckers. It's important for black rails. It's just an amazing spot for game as well.
Hi, I'm Craig Watson, South Atlantic Coordinator for the Atlantic Coast Joint Venture. I work for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in Charleston, South Carolina, and the Atlantic Coast Joint Venture is a bird conservation partnership from Maine to Puerto Rico. I coordinate activities from North Carolina to Puerto Rico, and I have worked with Janice Allen and the North Carolina Coastal Land Trust for many, many years. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Land Trust, its partners, and Janice for the great work that they do, particularly with the acquisition of the Salters Creek Tract in eastern North Carolina. That tract is highly beneficial to many priority species on the Atlantic coast and in the Atlantic Coast Joint Venture, especially for the American black duck and the black rail. So Janice and Land Trust and partners, congratulations, and I look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.
Greetings from Ashe County and the beautiful mountains of northwestern North Carolina. My name is Walter Clark, and I'm the Executive Director of the North Carolina Division of Land and Water Stewardship, which includes the Clean Water Management Trust Fund and our state's Natural Heritage Program. Since the founding of the Clean Water Management Trust Fund in 1996, the fund has helped our partners protect over 500,000 acres of our state's environmentally sensitive land and water. That protection is a result of an investment of over $1 billion with our partners, who include local land trusts like the North Carolina Coastal Land Trust. I'm proud to say that in 2018, the fund's board of directors awarded the Coastal Land Trust $1.2 million toward the acquisition of Salters Creek Landing, which was our highest ranking project that year. The Salters Creek project ranks so high because it is important for so many reasons. The 5,494 acres acquired includes 12 miles of protected stream buffer and 4,285 acres of wetlands. It also includes the Atlantic Natural Area, which is rated exceptional and includes 6 occurrences of rare and endangered plants and animals. Much of the land will be open to the public as part of a new North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission game land. It's really hard to imagine a more perfect project. I want to thank Camilla, Janice, and her team at the North Carolina Coastal Land Trust and all the other project partners for making this special acquisition happen. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. I'm Colonel Mike Huber, the Commanding Officer of Marine Corps Air Station Cherry Point, located in Havelock, North Carolina. Thank you for joining us today to celebrate the significant achievement in natural resources preservation and the sustainment of military operations. The Salters Creek property is situated on a restricted airspace and between 2 important military training facilities for the Marine Corps, the Piney Island Bombing Range and outlying Landing Field Atlantic. OLF Atlantic includes a live fire shoot house that supports close quarters tactics and expeditionary training and has 2 landing zones for military aircraft. The Piney Island Bombing Range is the primary joint use service bombing range on the East Coast and crucial to the U.S. military's National Defense Training Program. The Marine Corps was able to partner with the Coastal Land Trust on this land acquisition through the Department of Defense Readiness and Environmental Protection Integration Program. This program is a key tool for military services in combating encroachment that can limit or restrict military training, testing, and operations. REPI provided funding for the purchase of a restrictive easement over the Salters Creek property to prohibit incompatible development of the property, which might otherwise compromise the safety of pilots and aircrew who fly overhead. The Coastal Land Trust and Marine Corps have enjoyed a successful partnership for more than 10 years, and together protected nearly 12,000 acres of land for future generations to relish. Congratulations on the completion of the Salters Creek acquisition. I look forward to our next project. Semper Fidelis.
Wow. Listening to our partners describe how the protection of Salters Creek Landing contributes to their critical missions to protect clean water and natural areas, to save wildlife habitat and national resources, including endangered species, and finally, to train our nation's military that keep all of us safe, and that this one project protects all those values. This is so inspiring to me. Thankfully, others too joined the campaign to protect Salters Creek Landing by contributing grants to the project. Because when you buy more than 5,000 acres of coastal waterfront property, you're going to need a good bit of money. In addition to the partners whose videos you just heard, who contributed not just money, but also obtained real estate interests, we wish to acknowledge the generous support of 4 additional funders to the project. Duke Energy, through its Water Resources Fund, the North Carolina Native Plant Society, through its Alice Zawodzki Land Conservation Fund, the U.S. Endowment for Forestry and Communities, through Enviva's Forest Conservation Fund, and premier conservation philanthropist Fred and Alice Standback, and to the generous support from donors like you, who supported us, who support prior to our ability to write grants to these big funders, kept the project going in its infancy. We couldn't be happier that Salters Creek Landing is saved, and that North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission, to whom we conveyed the majority of the acreage of this splendid property, is now its owner and manager. Anne, will you present the deed for Salters Creek Landing to Brent Wilson, Coastal Ecoregion Supervisor for the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission?
Think of anything that would be a bigger pleasure. Brent, here you go. Did he get it?
Got it. It says special warranty deed made the 6th day of June 2019. Looks good to me.
Well, it is such an honor, Brent, to partner with the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission. We know that you are wonderful stewards of this incredible property, and we appreciate your care and keeping of this special place. Thank you very much. And thank you, Anne, for presenting the deed. Okay, I am going to check the chat to see if there are any questions that have come through. And it's not too late, so if you'd still like to send a question, you certainly may. Janice, there is a question about incompatible development that was mentioned in the military video. Can you say more about that, or is anybody on the call that could say a little bit more about that and just how land conservation plays a role in that?
Yes, Stephanie, I think that's a good question for either Carmen Lombardo or Rhonda. Carmen, do you want to take that, since that's kind of a term used by the military?
And you can unmute your microphone. Yeah, there you go.
Well, Janice, thank you, but I may turn that question over to Rhonda. She is currently the planner responsible for the REPI program at Marine Corps Air Station Cherry Point, and I think she would be in a better position to provide that context.
Okay.
Put you on the spot, Rhonda.
Rhonda's not there. I can answer that. Yeah, I mean, incompatible development is any type of residential, commercial development that occurs right up against the military facilities or within military training routes that would make it difficult for the military to carry out their training. And so the military has entered into many partnerships with conservation organizations like the Coastal Land Trust, the Wildlife Resources Commission, and others to conserve lands right up against their installations and in specific military training routes.
On the subject of the military partnerships, there's a question about how long the Coastal Land Trust has been partnering with the military.
Since 2005. We have conserved quite a bit of land, well over 12,000 acres
Yes.
with the military. Yep.
Yeah, I heard that mentioned in the video. That's very cool. There's a question. What is the most exciting element of this new acquisition? Can you name just one?
Well, I would say the diversity of habitats that occur all in one place. It really represents the best of what is left in down east Carteret County. It includes pretty much all of the habitat types that you would have found before development came to the shores of eastern North Carolina. So it's unique in that feature. I also think it's pretty impressive. I don't think we've ever done a project with 17 surveyed miles of waterfront.
For sure, for sure. Speaking of waterfront, there is a question about public access. And is it currently there, or will there be? Are there trails or put-ins or things like that?
And, of course, there is a Wildlife Commission boat landing immediately adjacent to the property that you can access as you cross the bridge over the creek over to the property. And Brent, do you want to talk any about the access for hunting or other recreational activities?
So we do have a plan in the works. So far, it's, we've not had any kind of development. There's some what I'd call rudimentary trails on the track. We'll probably install some access points in terms of parking to get people in there, and maybe do some road improvements because it's a good sized track to try to get people a little bit further into the interior.
But it is open for hunting now. Yeah.
It
right?
is.
Yeah.
It is.
Thanks, Brent.
And how would someone find out about how to go to hunt there?
So probably the best place would be to our Wildlife Commission website. And if you access game lands, you can look it up, and it's categorized under Carteret County game lands, of which there are 3 tracks, and this is one of them. So we have an online map there and other information.
Great.
Thank you.
One more question. What is the most unusual habitat type that is found in the 5,400 acres?
I'm not sure about unusual, maybe rare. We've really lost a lot of maritime forest. And so when I mentioned, kind of running into a couple patches, if you are familiar with the North Carolina coast, we still have some maritime forest on the Outer Banks and various, barrier islands, but it is very rare. It's been, destroyed for housing and other things. And so this tract has a little bit of that. It also has some Carolina bays, which are quite unusual, and many of them have been impacted. Like I say, a lot of rare habitats. Longleaf pine, one of my favorite. But yeah, I mean, I'm not sure about unusual as much as rare. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Are there any plans for research, marine or otherwise, with the state or private entities, universities, or maybe North Carolina Sea Grant at this time?
Brent, do you know?
No, there's nothing formal been set up. Of course, our property is always available for that type of work, but there's nothing formally in the works.
Yeah, right prior to the acquisition, the owners allowed us, or actually allowed the Fish and Wildlife Service to do some surveys for black rail, which is a very rare species that occurs in the coastal marsh, and they did find some there. So that was that was part of a larger research and survey project going on in North Carolina and other states.
One other point I'll make, part of the process, because of the land acquisition funding, it will be dedicated, and so the NC Natural Heritage Program will be out there doing some survey work on the ground to kind of establish some dedication boundaries. And I thought I'd relate something in dealing with Mike Shafley in setting up his coordinating field work on the tract. He related that he's waited his whole career to see that tract in conservation ownership. So coming from someone that's spent over 3 decades on property statewide, that's high praise as to its value.
And Brent, you just need to have it burned several times before he goes out?
Yeah, at the least.
So he can really be impressed.
We'll invite him back.
That's right.
Dennis, you might explain why some people might not think of burning marshland. Would you like to explain a little bit about that?
Well, I mean, a lot of these different habitats, you know, in the coastal plain periodically burn, including marsh. It's kind of a regenerative feature, disturbance, if you will. So the nice thing for Brent, who has to deal with a lot of prescribed burning on game lands, is this site, you know, other than having to coordinate with the military, which is obviously important to not affect their training efforts at Piney Island, but, you know, this tract has got mostly waterfront to burn up to. So, you know, that's a lot easier than trying to burn in smoke sensitive areas around developments or, you know, near heavy agriculture. So anytime we try to do prescribed burning to help regenerate habitats, obviously in some of the pine dominated woods, it removes a lot of understory and midstory and allows grasses to grow that are very important for a number of wildlife species. And many of the grasses themselves only flower after being burned. So it's very important. And this site hasn't been burned in many, many years, except maybe through wildfire. So it really needs to be burned. And I think at that point, we'll start to see even more rare species, particularly plants, come up through a seed bank. Brent, did you want to add anything to that? Or Dave, if you're on?
I guess my only addition to that is, well, you mentioned the water, you know, boundary helps out. Our challenges there are the fuel loading because it hasn't been burned in a long time, and then the unit size. You know, it's not easy to break it up, and so those are the big challenges there.
Got to have some challenges,
right?
Brent, before you unmute or mute yourself again, there's a question about the management. What will that look like through the WRC?
As I mentioned, we'll be doing a little bit of access management in terms of, you know, developing the access points. Right now, it's gated at the highway, and so, you know, there's not a good place to even park. So we'll do a little bit of access management, but the rest of it, primarily the habitat management, will revolve around prescribed burning.
Okay, very good, very good. All right, I don't see any additional questions popping in. That was awesome. Way to go, attendees. You had some amazing questions, and thank you so much to everyone who contributed to answering those. Before we head out, on behalf of the Coastal Land Trust, I would like to say thank you to Sailor's Snug Harbor for moving this land to public trust. It is, as you've learned today, just a huge accomplishment, and we would not have been able to do that without Sailor Snug. And then we do have at least one representative on the call today, so thank you. And please pass our thanks along to the whole group. To all of the attendees, thank you so much for being here to celebrate with us the dedication of Salters Creek Landing. Please join us again for future Little Lunch lectures. Watch your e-news or go online. I think Van is going to post a bunch of links for you to see. You can find out about our upcoming talks and even a few other special virtual events coming up this fall. We have a very full slate all the way through September, so please do check it out. Next week, you don't want to miss. Jessica Blake, our Director of Stewardship and Associate Director, will share stewardship stories from the field, and you will hear what it takes for us to keep our promise to protect land forever. And she will share some stories of things she has seen that might really surprise you. Finally, if you love land conservation, which I think you do because you're on this call today, or if you love the Little Lunch lectures and other Coastal Land Trust programs, We sure would appreciate your support. You can make a donation or renew your annual contribution online, and the link is in the chat, so check that out. And if you're interested in learning more about the ambitious Your Land campaign that Camilla and Janice mentioned earlier, please get in touch with Camilla or Van. All of our contact information is on the website, and I know that they would really enjoy and appreciate chatting with you about the Your Land campaign. Okay, one last final thanks for being here. We really appreciate seeing all your faces, and we do look forward to seeing you next week at the Little Lunch Lecture. Thanks. Bye, everybody. Yep.
Thank you.
Bye. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Welcome.
Bye.
Bye.